I do think they're going to face competition. The one thing I think that the big opportunity is right now for publicly traded companies in general is companies that have profitable underlying businesses that can turn around and flip some of that money into Bitcoin, whether it's 10%, whether it's 50%, doesn't matter. Every random individual just hodling and not telling anyone, that's not really the way we get to it. We get to it by the businesses and by the corporations getting into it, because that's where the big money is. Again, if we look back a year, I mean, yeah, there's been a lot of progress, but I mean, look back 10 years. Like look at it. The price was like $200 10 years ago. 99% of people that own Bitcoin probably didn't own it. 2021, when people legitimately were like 10x, 100xing their money on some random altcoin. And I think a lot of people have gotten used to thinking that that's actually a normal thing, when in reality it was a one-off. So I think that's another thing that kind of plays into it. And people think that they can outperform Bitcoin by trading altcoins or trading Bitcoin, which again, a very small amount of people will, but virtually nobody will at the end of the day.
And hi, Carter, how are you doing? Everything fine on your end?
Yeah, everything's good. I'm just excited about Bitcoin. That's what I want to be on.
Awesome. This is really, really cool. And you have a nice YouTube channel where we cover a lot of different topics and not just Bitcoin. So it's interesting to see your perspective on it also. But before we get started with all the topics and see what's kind of on the plate today, give us an overview of who you are and especially why you're excited about Bitcoin.
So it goes back to 2020. Obviously, everybody knows stuff was shut down, lost my job, and always been interested in economics, but I wasn't really interested in investing until then. And that's actually when I got this book. I don't know, people might recognize the name there, Matt Frater, one of the biggest Bitcoin YouTubers, I think. This was a stock book, but it led me to his YouTube channel, which led me to Bitcoin. So that's pretty much how I got onto Bitcoin. And I do remember when I first got into it, it was right around when it passed 10,000 US. I guess it would have been for the second time. So a lot of people are bummed out about the price nowadays, about how it hasn't really gone anywhere for almost a year now. But again, we're looking at almost exactly 5 years ago, it's up 700% or whatever it is now. So whenever people are looking at the price and they're complaining about the price, my recommendation, just go back a year, go back 3 years, go back 5 years, and all of a sudden you won't be so bummed out about the price. But as far as that, I don't really remember an aha moment. I just remember seeing his YouTube channel and it just made perfect sense. Like it's better than gold, it's better than stocks, it's better than real estate. Like why am I not going all into this? So I don't remember a specific aha moment, but I do remember being like, this is amazing. And I guess part of the reason for me starting to talk about Bitcoin and investing and stuff like that is kind of to, number one, it's interesting. I feel like there's very few people out there that are interested in this stuff. So it's kind of like my way of being able to talk about it. And also kind of to give back too, just because there's so many other people that they're putting in time, they're putting in effort, they're putting in money. And it's kind of my way of giving back, I'd say.
And it's interesting because if you're trying to figure out stocks that I've done that because my girlfriend just asked yesterday, asked me, should she diversify into stocks and should she diversify in like individual things and that in majors like that? And I told her, and I'm really believing that it's strongly, if you wanna invest in a stock, you have to put in a lot of work to really have the belief in what that stock could be and what you can actually do with that stock. And so what I mean by that is, if you invest in, let's say, Tesla, and it goes down 50, 60% in like 2018 or 2019, when it was down for 1 or 2 years, you would only stick with Tesla if you really know what Tesla was back in the day. Then it made 1,200% gainer within like 2-3 years. And I know about that because I was exactly in that moment in Tesla where it was down massively and then it went up massively. This was before I was even in Bitcoin. And I say that because in the time where Tesla went down 50%, I was into every conference calls. Every week I reviewed all the news that were there with Tesla. For me, the Tesla conference call was almost like a football game for someone else. Like I stayed up late because I'm in the European time. And so it was like at 1, 2 in the morning, my time. And I watched it. I transcribed the whole thing, and I was really searching for all the cues in there. And I was doing such a hard work, because for my first 1 year or 1.5 years of my position in Tesla, I was down. And then afterwards, the next 2 years, it just shot up massively. And I could guarantee you that I would have sold if I wouldn't have done the homework. And so I tell this to every person that says, like, should I diversify into stock outside of Bitcoin? Remember that there are not a lot of stocks that outperform Bitcoin. There will always be a few stocks that might outperform Bitcoin, like Nvidia did the last 5 years. MicroStrategy did the last 5 years. There are like 2, 3 other stocks that I found that outperformed it, but it's super hard to find them. And their rate of maybe not making it, so Bitcoin hurdle rate, is super, super high. And you probably fail because they have a very high volatility and you don't know what the management team is doing. And so I found it interesting to figure out like what stocks are kind of doing better than Bitcoin, because they're not a lot, and it's really hard to find them, and most people will just vanish out. And it's active work. You have to keep up with Bitcoin. There's no news. Like you can just like invest and like you're good to go. Like you don't need to spend every week figuring out what the management team is going to do this week or next week.
Yeah, that's exactly how I see it. When people see me on YouTube, they probably think, oh, he's into this, he's into that. But at the end of the day, the majority of my, aside from my house, my net worth is in cold storage, multi-sig, Bitcoin. So even though you might see, hey, he's into this stock, he's into that stock, he's into this ETF, he's into that ETF, the majority of it at the end of the day is in cold storage, multi-sig, Bitcoin. It's to set it and forget it, buy a certain amount every day and forget about it.
And I think that's how it should be, right? It's like you have the majority of your wealth in savings technology, Bitcoin, and with the remaining of it, you can gamble in the stock market. You can do maybe ETFs, maybe some income things, like whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good strategy, especially for new people. I would start slow. I wouldn't go all in unless you have a ton of money, but then you don't really have to worry anyway. But I definitely would start slow. I wouldn't be 50% day one. I would probably start with 5 to 10% and kind of ratchet it up there as you figure stuff out, because a lot of people, when they get into it, they don't know about mining. They don't know about, that kind of stuff. They don't even know about like halving cycles and even more basic stuff like that. Like they don't even know how to buy it. I have to download an app and buy it off an exchange. Like they don't know anything. So just keep it as simple as you possibly can. Once you start to learn stuff, then you can get into it more.
Is the knowledge the only thing why you're saying they shouldn't go all in? It's like the thing is like, because they don't know the custody, the buyings and all the things with Bitcoin, that they shouldn't go all in too quickly?
From what I hear in talking to people, I've actually had a few people bring it up to me recently that I didn't bring it up with them. They brought it up with me. The thing that people typically are scared of the most, I hear, is they buy, and that's when the 50% crash happens. And if they put 50% of their net worth into it and it's a 50% crash happens over the next year, it might sour them on it completely, and it could go up 1,000% over the next 5 years. But even though all they remember is they lost 50% that first year they put it in. So that's why I would start slow. And at the end of the day, if it's going to go up 20, 30, 40% a year like we expect, if you're dollar cost averaging, $100, $500 a month from now until, the next 10 or 20, 30 years, you're going to be really well off anyways. So that's my thought process on it. I think other people might disagree and say go all in, but that's my thought process.
How do you think about strategy as MSTR? Like, how did you find this stock, and like, what's kind of your thesis on it?
I really like it. I think that in the Bitcoin space, I think that too many people, they kind of dismiss it as, oh, it's. I mean, there's people in the TradFi space. That's a whole different topic that we could go into. But the people within the Bitcoin space, like the Bitcoin maxis, they kind of view it as it's gambling, it's not real Bitcoin. But I disagree, because if we view Bitcoin as the best, the hardest form of money ever to exist, it would be logical that the corporations put money into it as a reserve. Like, why would they not do it if it's the best money ever to exist, especially if it's going to outperform, if it's going to return 30% a year? Like, what percentage of businesses can compound their company 30% a year? Like, very, very few. So I think that strategy is very interesting because they have such a huge head start, like such a massive head start. Like, if you look at corporations, I think it's around 1.1 million Bitcoin they own. And, 640,000 of that is strategy. So the majority of Bitcoin owned by corporations is owned by them. So they're interesting because they have such a first mover advantage. And I also think even more important is what they're doing with the preferreds, which not a lot of people are talking about. We talked about stocks and how you have to be watching conference calls and all that kind of stuff to stay up on it. I did watch their whole earnings call, which was October 30th, it would have been. And they talked vast majority of it about their preferred shares. And people aren't really putting this all together here, because when you look at a lot of these Western countries, interest rates are at, 2-3%. Japan's even lower. I know some of the European countries, I think Switzerland's like basically nothing. And if they're paying 9-10%, STRC's up to 10.5%. If you're not in the US, they make you pay a tax, but still, for all intensive purposes, it's around 10%. You have, I think it's around $300 trillion in bonds. Most of that is short term. And if these bonds are paying 2-3% and you can get 10% buying their preferred shares, why would you not buy the preferred shares? You can get 3x the return, give or take. Maybe you're taking a little bit more risk, but it's 3 times the return. It's a little bit more risk, but it's nowhere close to 3x. Why would you not do that? And when people figure this out, they're going to start doing it. And when people start doing that, that's more money that strategies can be able to use to buy Bitcoin, which is just going to compound over and over and over and over again.
Is that unique to strategy because they were the first mover advantage, or is that duplicatable by other companies?
Actually, Strive, which is another publicly traded US company, actually just this morning, I seen it literally right before we went online. They're offering a preferred right now, but as of right now, it's just strategy. Strive is offering one, but again, this is a company that's probably 10 times, probably even more than 10 times smaller than strategy. The stock hasn't done nearly as good. I think they're actually a SPAC or an IPO recently. So there is one other one that I'm aware of. I know Metaplanet's not doing it. None of the European ones are doing it. There's no one in Canada that's doing it. And actually, as I think about that too, they are also talked on their conference call about how they were considering, some people even said it's final, they're doing it. But from what I remember hearing, they're considering offering ones in the EU. They're going to offer ones in Canada, which that would tap their capital markets like even more, which would allow them to buy even more Bitcoin. So as far as I'm aware, there's only one other one that's doing it, and they're actually just starting, and they're a much, much smaller company. So yeah, it is a massive advantage that they have.
It's super interesting because if you think about any company that is innovating, let's just make that example of Tesla. They had a major advantage because they invested in electric vehicles, and it was like, if you get an electric vehicle, it's like, yeah, you get a Tesla. They have the brand advantage. Now they get so much competition from China. They're getting competition also from the incumbent system. I still think like Tesla makes the nicest electric vehicles. But if we think about the same concept of strategy versus other treasury companies, I mean, Seyr is almost welcoming, and he loves competition. He loves people making the same thing. Like, he literally provides that as free resources for other people to like how to start a treasury company from your company. But in terms of the unique position that treasury, that strategy is in, how do you think this will go in the years to come if people like catch up to that and more companies say like, oh, we can also do that, and there are still companies that are way bigger than quite not actually like the companies that are bigger than strategy, they get less and less, like fewer and fewer companies are actually bigger than strategy, but there are still a few companies that are a lot bigger than strategy. When they come in and say like, oh, like we should also do some Bitcoin strategy, like we're thinking about the FANG stocks, we're thinking about the really big S&P 500 companies. Do you think that strategy will like face competition in that sense of tapping capital markets, like Tesla is now slowly doing with electric vehicles and with the full self-driving cars? I mean, with Tesla, it's a weird example because I think they are miles away of the competition for anyone else, but that's a whole nother topic. But how do you think about the competition aspect that strategy will maybe face?
I do think they're going to face competition. The one thing I think that the big opportunity is right now for publicly traded companies in general is companies that have profitable underlying businesses that can turn around and flip some of that money into Bitcoin, whether it's 10%, whether it's 50%, doesn't matter. That's, I think, a huge opportunity right now. And if anyone is going to catch strategy, it's going to be a company that is already a very large company that starts doing something like that. I know there's chat about like Apple or someone along those lines doing it. But as far as competition goes, as far as like the traditional, at least how we view it right now, the traditional Treasury strategy, I don't think anyone's catching them. As far as that goes, I think it kind of depends how, like if we see a very large bear market over the next year or two, which again, the whole, you know, are the traditional halving cycles a thing of the past or not? That's another conversation. But I think it kind of depends on that, because if we see a large bear market, I think some of these certainly could go under. I mean, we see like Metaplanet's down significantly a lot recently. Nakamoto's down a lot. So my opinion is I don't think anyone's catching strategy, at least as the traditional business. But I think it also depends a little bit on how things go going forward, because these younger, smaller companies, they do have a much larger advantage on them insofar as it's easier to grow from a $1 billion company to a $10 billion company than it is $100 billion to $1 trillion. So my opinion, I don't think anyone's catching them, but I think it does depend a little bit to some degree on how Bitcoin goes going forward. Because if we go, let's say we go to $1 million a coin over the next couple years or so, I think that, you know, a Metaplanet could catch them, especially because you look at the Japanese market. If they start going all in on the preferreds, I think they definitely could catch them. But long and short of it, I'd be very surprised if anyone does catch them. The only way anyone's catching them is if, I mean, Tesla's a good example. They do hold Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Like if they started buying, I mean, they're already a larger company than them by quite a bit. So I think if it is going to happen, it's going to have to happen really soon. I don't see that. I don't think that the TradFi market is there yet.
Yeah, there's such an interesting space because they have the first mover advantage. Nobody really has catched on to that system that they are employing. I mean, we had Tesla. They now have whatever, I think 9,000 or 10,000 Bitcoin, which is nothing against what they could have, and also nothing against what strategy already has. It's a lot of Bitcoin still. Like 10,000 Bitcoin is not nothing, but a company like Apple, Facebook, Google, Amazon, Tesla, like Microsoft, like there are many companies that are huge and turn a profit and have a really profitable underlying operating system. If they could turn on like a Bitcoin strategy, not even aggressive, like even a very non-aggressive Bitcoin strategy of like employing buying like a few tens of thousands of Bitcoin every month, which they could easily do, would make a huge difference. What I'm interested in is like, do you think the model of treasury companies that don't have a real business model underneath them is sustainable at all?
I think it depends entirely on the preferreds, to be honest. I think it also depends a little bit on the traditional halving cycles. If we do see these, still continue to see the massive booms and busts, I would say that the smaller ones, most of them, if not all of them, won't last. But I think the preferreds are, I mean, Seyr calls it the iPhone moment. And I really think that the preferreds are the big differentiator, because like we mentioned earlier, you have interest rates around, 100, 200, 300 basis points. If you can turn around and get a steady stream of capital at, 7, 8, 9, 10%. I mean, in Japan, it could be like 4 or 5%. Basically just take whatever the interest rate is in the country, double it and or even triple it, depending on where you're at. That's, I think, where the differentiator comes, because you can have a steady stream of capital to buy Bitcoin. And the other thing about the preferred shares that I hear from a lot of people, even a lot of people that are like super quote unquote educated, is they think that what MSTR is doing is taking on debts, but they're not taking on debt, because you know anything about accounting, you would know that preferred shares are an asset on the balance sheet. They're not a liability. So they're not taking on debt. The only concern is to be able to pay the dividend. But when you look at Strategy, they have what, 70, 80 billion dollars in Bitcoin, and they have, I think it's $500 or $600 million a year to pay out in dividends. So again, you're like what, 100x over collateralized as far as the Bitcoin goes. So that's why I think that, and they think that the preferreds are really the big differentiator, I think, because if you can get a steady stream of capital. And not only that, like how many people, like look at all the boomers out there right now, they're getting their 2-3% on bonds. Imagine if they turn around and flip some of that money into an STRC, they 3x the amount of money they're getting. If they have, let's say they have the 60-40 bond portfolio, they have $1 million. So they have $600,000 in STRC. That's tens of thousands of dollars more per year in income that you could be getting. So that's why I think that at the end of the day, I think the preferreds are the big differentiator, because I don't think that the business model of actually taking on debt, I don't think that's realistic. Again, if we see a perma bull market for Bitcoin, that's realistic, but I don't think that is realistic. I think that the halving cycles are a thing of the past to a degree, not entirely, but to a degree. And given that, if we're still going to have the large drawdowns, I think that a lot of the smaller ones are going to get killed if they don't have the preferreds.
Maybe it's interesting for people to know what is a preferred stock even. I think most people, I just assume that people know what a stock is, but maybe a few people don't know like what is a preferred stock. And also interesting, like why is that? You said the iPhone moment of treasury companies.
Well, he calls it the iPhone moment because the iPhone was what put Apple on the map, right? Like if Apple didn't have the iPhone, like they would be much, much, much smaller today. But as far as the preferred shares go, again, I'm not an expert, but the benefit of the preferred shares is they're higher up on the capital structure compared to the common equity. So in the event of bankruptcy, they would get paid out first. So you're benefiting there. And they're also beneficial to the company because they're not debt, they're an asset. If they were to take on debts like the converts and stuff like that, that's different. But the preferred shares, the big differentiator is that they never have to pay back. Like if they issue $5 billion in preferred shares, they don't ever have to pay that back. They just have to pay the dividend. So that's why it's so beneficial compared to issuing shares or to taking on debt, because all they have to do is pay the dividend. They pay their 9-10%. Bitcoin goes up 20, 30, 40% a year, and they capture the spread until the end of time. So that's the big differentiator.
That's interesting. You also said that you think that halving cycles are dead. Why do you mean that? Like, I mean, with halving cycles, you probably mean that like 3 years up and 1 year down, not that the halvings are dead.
Yeah, that might be a little bit of a controversial thing. I know a lot of people get kind of up and whatnot when you bring that up. But I say that because when you look at the halving cycles, well, it's getting cut in half every 4 years, roughly, right? So eventually, I mean, we went from 3.125 to 1.56, whatever. The next time, the amount is getting less and less over time. So I mean, eventually, it's going to be at the point where we go from 0.1 to 0.05, right? And that amount of Bitcoin is so minuscule that how can we expect that to have the same effect as when it went from 50 to 25 or 25 to 12.5, right? The absolute difference is so significant that I don't see how it can have such a large impact on the price simply from the halving. Like it's so it's going to get to the point where it's so minuscule that it's barely even noticeable. So that's why I think that the halving cycles are going. I still think we're going to see the traditional, 20, 30, 40, maybe 50% pullbacks, but I think the 80, 90% pullbacks are a thing of the past.
It's really interesting for me because I think even more important than the supply side is also the demand side is completely changing, because the supply side of Bitcoin, where we get less and less, that the halving cycles have less and less of an impact of the supply, of the overall supply chain of Bitcoin. But then the demand side is completely different now. I mean, you're talking about strategy, you're talking about treasury companies, institutional buyers. Then we also have the ETFs and BlackRock in the game. They are not the same type of buyers and sellers that were in 2017 or 2013 and so it's just natural, in my opinion, that the cycles will be dead. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year, maybe in 5 years, I don't know, but it's just a question of time till the cycles are over. Whether if it's a question of like if they are ever over, I think it's just like a matter of time till they actually change.
Yeah, that's exactly what my opinion is. I'm not 100% confident that from now on it's going to be a thing of the past, but I think in the near future it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And another important thing to realize too, I think, is that a lot of people within the Bitcoin space, they've been in it for so long that they don't realize what it's like when you're not in it. And a good example of this is a couple weeks ago, I wanted to borrow some money on a HELOC in my house to invest some of it Bitcoin. And I we were talking about, they want to go over your assets just to figure out how much they'll give you basically. And I asked the loan guy, he's like, oh, do you count Bitcoin as an asset or as collateral for this loan? And he said no, but not only did he say no, he kind of smirked and laughed about it. So we're at the point to where one of the, I'm in Canada, one of the big 5 banks, they laugh at you when they even ask them if it's considered an asset or you want to use it as collateral. So that's how early we are, that the traditional finance people, not only they're not considering it, they're still laughing at you. So I know some of the American ones are a little more ahead of the curve on this. They still haven't really started to do it. But I mean, in Canada, they're still laughing at you when you bring this stuff up. So I still think we're super early.
Yeah. And I believe that nobody gets how early we still are. I think people say that we're early, but they really haven't grasped how early we really are. I have this statement that I think people underestimate the full impact of Bitcoin, but they overestimate the speed of adoption. So people think that we are quicker moving in the adoption cycle, but they underestimate where we go with Bitcoin overall. And I have hundreds of years outlook for Bitcoin, where it is so huge that it will basically subdivide everything on planet Earth and maybe even beyond that. This is not even really the starting point. Like, we are not talking about Bitcoin maturing and Bitcoin growing up and like Bitcoin is becoming that and that. And I'm like, no, we're just getting started. Like the whole thing is way bigger than we all think it is. It's people still look at Bitcoin like it's a stock.
Yeah, I think that's another thing too, that the traditional finance people, they can't really wrap their heads around. But my argument whenever I hear, oh, well, Bitcoin doesn't have cash flow. It doesn't, I mean, technically, actually, strategy has earnings, but Bitcoin doesn't have earnings. But it's also like me saying, like, I'm not going to invest in real estate because I can't go sell it on my brokerage account tomorrow and have the money the next day. Like, no one would consider that to be a valid reason not to buy real estate. But that's pretty much what people are saying when they say, oh, you don't want to buy Bitcoin because it doesn't have earnings.
And it has cash flow. I never understand that argument quite right. If you buy Bitcoin today for 100,000 and you sell it in 2030 for $1 million, there is $900,000 in cash flow. The cash flow is not monthly; it's just like at the end of it. So it's like, do you rather have an asset that gives you a small cash flow every single month, but it doesn't appreciate, or do you want to have an asset that will 10x over the next 5 years, and you don't get a monthly salary from that, but you get a way bigger payoff? Like who earns like 900,000 in like 5 years with just like one Bitcoin? And if you earn that much, you probably make a lot more if you just invest that whole thing in Bitcoin. And so the whole cash flow thing is so stupid, in my opinion, because it's all about purchasing power. We all want purchasing power. And like, they just people that say like, oh, I want to have a cash flow, they're just addicted to a salary, and they think a salary is all that matters, when in reality, purchasing power over time, net worth over time, capital accumulation, resource capture, that's the real game.
Yeah, that's the name of the game at the end of the day. And the other thing about Bitcoin is it's so simple too. Like you buy a certain amount, however often you're going to do it, and you just set it and forget it. Like stocks, you have to worry about the management team. You got to worry about a lot of other stuff too. And I think also in the Bitcoin space, it's somewhat of a change of topic, but I think people don't communicate the main benefit to Bitcoin properly. I think that the main benefit to Bitcoin is the fact that no one can censor it, and you own it at the end of the day too. I don't want to change it too much, but I think one of the best books for understanding Bitcoin's Broken Money. I don't know. Have you ever read it before?
Haven't read it before, and it's one of my great regrets till now. I'm so deep in the Bitcoin rabbit hole that I kind of stopped reading new Bitcoin books. I've read it a lot of the Bitcoin books in the beginning, and now I talk about Bitcoin every single day on the podcast. That I'm like, oh shit! Like but I want to have Lynn on my podcast, and then it's probably the time where before that I dive into this book. But yeah, go ahead and like, you want to share something?
Yeah, I would strongly recommend it. Honestly, I think it's the best. It's not directly a Bitcoin book, but they kind of slowly works their way into it. And I think that the big point is at the end of the day, what they say is who controls the ledger, right? Because when you look at every other asset, someone else, a centralized entity, has control over it. The big differentiator between Bitcoin is that there's no centralized entity that controls it. So even gold, I know a lot of the gold bugs like to argue, but at the end of the day, the only way gold can be used as money is to get the banks involved or to get some third party involved. And again, you're just recreating the existing system to some degree. But the big differentiator with Bitcoin is it's decentralized. It's completely decentralized. I know a lot of altcoiners like to argue that their altcoin is better in some way, but at the end of the day, 99% of them are pump and dumps. They're going away, and of the ones that aren't, most of them are centralized. I mean, look at the other top 10 cryptos like XRP, highly centralized, had a pre-mine. ETH, same thing. Solana, same thing. BNB, same thing. I think a lot of the other ones are Stablecoins. So this is the big the thing that separates Bitcoin is at the end of the day, who controls the ledger? Like, this is what people need to be asking themselves when it comes to this kind of stuff. And if there is someone or a company or any entity that you can think of, you're cooked at the end of the day.
Yeah, 100% of altcoins are centralized. It's so funny because I mean, they get less, and now like the altcoins are not that big anymore. They kind of like are like more silent now. Maybe I just don't hear it yet. But
I remember like 2020, 2021 when I first got into it. Like, there were people legitimately saying like, oh, ETH is gonna flip Bitcoin. Even Solana, XRP, you hear about it every now and then. It kind of comes and goes, but basically no one's even talking about that anymore. So I think that's another massive stepping stone, or a massive barrier that we've passed. That's good news.
Yeah, nobody cares about altcoins. They're all centralized companies, and people that really research the topic also know it. It's not like a secret. It's like people know that they are centralized companies. Now, I would argue that most of them are scams, and the few that aren't scams are still scams, but the people involved really believe that it's a good thing that they're doing, but they still are kind of like scamming people to a certain degree, because they usually claim things that just aren't true, like, oh, like we are decentralized, or we are better in that way of Bitcoin. A small exclusion would be stablecoins, but stablecoins for me are not altcoins. Stablecoins are just fiat. That has nothing to do with crypto, in my opinion. Even though, like, yes, there's a blockchain, but and there's cryptography, but there's nothing like the stablecoin is not crypto, and stablecoins are not Bitcoin. Like, it is a very different thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, stablecoins. I think arguably the main argument for stablecoins is a lot of people in third world countries, their currency is very, it's getting inflated like well into the double digits. It's very unstable, and the argument for stable coins is they flip their money into stable coins, and all of a sudden, not only can they transact and not be censored, but they actually have a currency that's not being devalued a lot. That I think that's the argument for stable coins, and I think it's something too in the first world that it's kind of hard for people to understand, because even though we're still getting killed by inflation, we're not getting killed by inflation as bad as a lot of the third world countries. So I think it's kind of hard for us to understand.
I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called Microseed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With Microseed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups, because Microseed is not selling the washer. Microseed is selling the device that stamps the washer. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today. And you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io. Again, that's microseed.io to get your last backup tool you ever need. The most important thing for your Bitcoin journey is not buying Bitcoin, but it's how to keep them. And yes, you have maybe the right tools, but how do you actually go ahead and stick it all together so it's the most secure for you personally? Self-custody is a deeply personalized journey, and the Bitcoin way is helping you exactly finding that correct setup for you personally. They are also helping you with securing your own cybersecurity. And if you want to go one step above all that, you can even get a consultation for a Plan B residency. Go to thebitcoinway.com/Robin and you will get a 30-minute free consultation. I finally and officially mine Bitcoin. This is not just something to stack more Satoshis, but it's most importantly also to support the network. Individual miners are the ones that keep the Bitcoin network decentralized. And by the way, you get KYC-free Bitcoin. That's why I use simplemining. I get an actual proper Bitcoin miner. They set it up for me. They repair it if it breaks down. And most importantly, they let me choose the pool and even connect my own full node. I'm completely sovereign and I'm completely in control, and I can sign up with Ocean, no account needed. I just give them a Bitcoin address and then there's mining going on. No KYC, nothing. So if you're ready to mine Bitcoin, go to simplemining.io, tell them you come from Robin, and let's mine Bitcoin together. Yeah, stablecoins, it's hard because they are kind of a hidden CBDC in a way. You know, that like there's like centralized currency that's digital, but they are in a way, they solve a lot of problems in the third world countries for people that don't have access to banking, and so them having access to stablecoins is a huge deal. But it's like a hybrid. How's it called? Blu-ray. It's almost like a Blu-ray technology. You know, do you remember Blu-ray when it was? Oh, super sorry.
it kind of came and went. Netflix came out right after them and just destroyed them.
Exactly, and that's the whole thing. I think Blu-ray is in the same way as stable coins. They are better than fiat currency, than normal fiat currency. So Blu-ray is better than like DVDs and CDs and all of the things. But the whole thing, what they're missing is there is Bitcoin now there. It's decentralized, it's secure, and the UX is not quite there yet, and like there's mass adoption is like still yet to happen. The iPhone moment for Bitcoin, I think, is still yet to come, but it will come. And then it's just a question of time till people go from Blu-ray back to Bitcoin, or like Blu-ray from Blu-ray back to from Blu-ray to Netflix, and from stablecoins back to Bitcoin. It's just a matter of time, because like stablecoins are just a little bit better fiat.
I think as far as the iPhone moment for Bitcoin goes, I think it's going to be the time when people realize that inflation and, governments even pretending to care about spending money in a rational way is a thing of the past. A good example of this is in Canada last week. We had the Fed meeting, but we had, the equivalent to the Fed meeting in Canada, and the Bank of Canada governor basically said straight up, like, hey, people are going to have to get used to a lower standard of living. And not only that, when you look at, the analysts and stuff like that, there's a lot of people that are starting to say like that the days of quote unquote 2%, which is in reality, it's like 5, 6, 7%, but the days of 2% inflation are gone, and it's going to be, 3, 4%. And I think that eventually people are going to have to choose between lowering their standard of living and buying Bitcoin. And I think it's a very obvious solution right there when you ask that question.
Yeah. Do you want to live broke, or do you want to live good? Like, like what do you want to have? you choose Bitcoin. One interesting thing, I don't know if you've covered that or like dove into that, but for me, because you mentioned real estate also, and for me, Grant Cardone's strategy, he was recently on my podcast also, is really interesting, because he kind of combines the Treasury company philosophy with real estate and puts like Bitcoin in there. And he talked about that on my podcast with him, where Bitcoin and real estate is kind of this yin and yang kind of like a thing. How do you feel, and how do you think about the Grant Cardone strategy with real estate and Bitcoin?
I think it's a really, really good strategy. I did make a video on it recently, and the reason for that is it's kind of similar to what Strategy is doing in a way, in that, again, he's borrowing money at, whatever it is, probably 4 or 5%. I'm sure he's getting basically, T-bills plus a very small amount. And it's really genius, because when you look at real estate, the way people make money in real estate is they have, Grant Cardone's probably got tens of thousands of properties, but if you're an average Joe, you have 1 or 2 properties. The way you make money is that you build enough equity so you can afford another property, flip it into another property, build enough equity so you can buy 2 properties, you buy 2, build enough so you can buy 4, and you just kind of go from there. But what he's doing is amazing, because I think his number, I don't know how he came up with this number, but I think he said it was like 68-32, where he puts like 68% in, maybe it was 62-38, something along there. But it's genius, because he's borrowing money at probably 4, 5, 6%, and he's putting it into Bitcoin, which is going to return 20, 30, 40%. So I think that's another massive untapped area where he's pretty much the only one that's doing it. And another thing a lot of people say about what he's doing too, that I would like to dispel, is that people say, oh, he just got into it, he's just here for the hype. But I believe he said he's been in it for like a decade, and he's been hodling for like a decade. So he's been in it for longer than the vast majority of people. He just started talking about it recently. So I do think that's an area that has massive untapped potential, because I'm not necessarily a fan of real estate investing, insofar as if you look at like cost of living and inflation and stuff like that, politicians and a lot of people, they like to blame everything but what's actually causing the problem on the problem. And when you look at real estate's going to be the easiest thing for governments to go after. So that's something that, on one hand, I think it's a genius strategy, but on the other hand, I think it's like, really, if governments start to come after people, especially rich people, it's real estate's probably going to be the first thing they come after. So I think it's a genius strategy. But on the other hand, I think that you have a lot of governments, especially in the West, that are very questionable in their ethics and their honesty with the public. So I'm kind of torn on what I think will happen there.
I just wanted to look it up, but he mentioned actually that on my podcast where he got a speaking gig, and I think it was 2013. It was super, super early in Bitcoin, where he got a speaking gig, and he was saying like they only wanted to pay him in Bitcoin. They didn't want to pay in anything else. And first the manager of Grant Cardone kind of said like, no, he's taking only dollars. But then Grant Cardone said like, if he wants to give us Bitcoin, he's already there. Let's just do it anyways. And he kept those Bitcoin. And I don't remember the number, but it was like 30 or like 100 or like 300 Bitcoin. Like it was a ridiculously high number for a speaking gig. Obviously it was 2013. And, it was interesting because basically from that moment onwards, he had Bitcoin. He didn't understand it. He didn't like fully grasp it. But he got Bitcoin and he always held it, and he hodled it to this day, which is interesting because it kind of reveals like his thinking on assets. He just like wants to accumulate assets and hold them. And he said something really interesting. He said like, dump the soft asset and hold the hard assets, where he said like, get into cement, get into real estate, gold, Bitcoin, all the hard assets, but don't do any of the soft assets like paper. I don't remember the exact wording how he said it, but this was basically his thing. And I find it interesting that people that get that philosophy of hard assets, you have to accumulate hard assets, get Bitcoin. And there is not a lot of people that I've met till now that were open to the discussion, that got that philosophy of hard assets versus soft assets, that didn't get Bitcoin after me telling them about it. They often didn't get it before, but they slowly got it because they get like, oh, okay, Bitcoin is a hard asset, and that's why I get it. And I think that's why he also gets it so good, even though he probably doesn't understand it as well as most of the Bitcoiners. Probably most of the audience, he like understands it on a fundamental basis even better than him. And he's also not making a huge claim that he understands it in the deep ends. But he understands one critical thing. He understands that it's a hard asset and worth accumulating. So I just wanted to throw that in because like he has been hodling Bitcoin technically for like 12 years now.
Did he say how long he was doing the hybrid Bitcoin real estate strategy for? Or did you ever ask him?
I mean, he's still doing that. Like, what do you mean?
Like how long he's been like, whenever he goes to take out a loan to buy real estate, he flips some of that into Bitcoin. Did he say how long he's been doing that for?
Oh, I did not ask him that. Interesting. I mean, I know since when he does it publicly, but actually, like, because he could have done that previously already, right? Like, I don't know, because publicly he does it since like 1 or 2 years now, something like that. I've seen him because I follow him like since 5 years probably. And I have never heard him talking about Bitcoin up until like 2 years ago. I think like maybe 2 years ago. But I think he did it already beforehand, maybe, but I haven't asked him, unfortunately.
Yeah, something tells me he's been doing it for longer than he's been letting on. But again, that's a question that only he would know.
Oh, maybe he talked about that.
Yeah.
Oh shit, yeah, he talked about that actually, that he has been doing it for longer, but I think now what he's doing is he does it really publicly and combining that. Previously, he probably just like bought Bitcoin just as an asset because Gary, his brother, got it. I think Gary Cardone, he was already 3 times on podcast. He definitely is way deeper into what Bitcoin is. And so he probably like got him also a little bit in there and like how they did everything. But it's really interesting. For me, it's just interesting to see those guys being in Bitcoin. Like the real estate guys being in Bitcoin, that's freaking awesome. We now have the Treasury and the stock guys and the TradFi guys slowly coming into Bitcoin, and slowly everyone realizes you need Bitcoin. Like you need Bitcoin in your life. That's a major thing.
Yeah, that's really the way that we get to hyper Bitcoinization. How people say it is that the every random individual just hodling and not telling anyone. That's not really the way we get to it. We get to it by the businesses and by the corporations getting into it, because that's where the big money is.
100%. I fully agree with you. What is actually kind of your outlook on Bitcoin in general? Like we talked about like treasury companies and like also the real estate. How do you think? What are the next steps for Bitcoin to going forward?
I think it's going to happen slower than what people think. I think that we kind of it's one of those things that you overestimate what you can get done in a year and underestimate what you can get done in 10 years. Because again, if we look back a year, I mean, yeah, there's been a lot of progress, but I mean, look back 10 years. Like look at the price was like $200 10 years ago. 99% of people that own Bitcoin probably didn't own it. So going forward, I think the big thing is, I think that the treasury companies are big. That's really big. But I think it's the big thing is like the small to medium sized businesses, because I think that the big publicly traded ones, I don't think they're going to be able to ignore it, because if Bitcoin continues to outperform all other forms of assets, I mean, if no one else gets into it, it's only a matter of time until Strategy is the largest company in the world. But I think that someone else probably gets into it before that happens. But going forward, I think that even though the price has gone basically nowhere over the last year, I still think that we have every reason to be optimistic. I mean, look at what's happening with the ETFs. Look at what's happening with the treasury companies. I mean, look at what's happening in the U.S. too, with that the president literally owns Bitcoin. His kids own Bitcoin. You have numerous senators, Congress people that own it. It's looking like they're going to get a crypto bill passed. But I mean, let's hope that it's mainly to help Bitcoin. But I think we're looking very good. As long as I've been in it, I've never been more optimistic as I am right now. I don't know what you think.
It is really interesting because the risks of Bitcoin, or not the risk, let's say the open questions to Bitcoin, like will it be attacked within Bitcoin? Will it be attacked outside of Bitcoin? What happens if the richest man alive buys Bitcoin and then dumps it again? Elon Musk,
Yeah.
what he basically did, like all those questions were like, what happens if, they all been kind of answered now. We have treasury companies, we have real estate people, we have gold bugs in Bitcoin, we have everyone in Bitcoin, we have all the things that we need in Bitcoin. Now we just build on that and we're moving forward. And like Jordy recently said in an interesting interview that he thinks 2025 is kind of the IPO year for Bitcoin, where we have built the last 15, 16 years, everything for Bitcoin. And it's kind of very strong foundation for Bitcoin. And now that we've built that foundation, now we can really start monetizing and really start building on this great foundation that we've built the last 15 years. So I think most of the growth will come right now into Bitcoin and will not come. It's not in the past that the growth was there. Like most of the growth comes right now in the next 5, 10, 20 years into Bitcoin. It will take longer. Like I always look out in Bitcoin for like next 20 to 30 years and not next like 2 to 5 years, because I think the next 5 years will be super bullish. I think we are getting probably to like 1 million, maybe a little bit less than that. I don't know. But the next 10 to 20 years will be absolutely, we will be sitting here in 20 years. We will look back at this podcast and say like, oh shit, that actually has been happening. It was so much bigger. And there has been like 5 iPhone moments in those 20 years for Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think it's exciting, especially for young people, because we're the ones that have been hit the hardest with inflation, with housing issues and stuff like that. And it really is the best. It's not the only option, but it's the best option to escape the inflation and to escape the having to lower your standard of living, like the Bank of Canada governor brought up recently. So I think that we definitely do have to zoom out, because we're still so early with the fact that, again, like look at S&P 500 companies. We have like 3, I believe, that hold Bitcoin. strategy might get in December. We'll see. But I mean, the fact you have 3 out of 500 companies that hold Bitcoin, I think that's just a testament to how early we still are.
How old are you? Are you Gen Z still?
Yeah, I'm a 97. I'm about as old as you can be to be Gen Z.
God, so you are 1 year older than me, and you are the last year in Gen Z, right? Like 1996 is already millennial.
Yeah, I think it's 95 or 96 I think it's 96 is the cutoff for millennial.
That's crazy. Yeah. How do you think about Bitcoin for Gen Z? Because I see the statistics on my YouTube channel. You probably see the same statistics on your YouTube channel. Most of Bitcoiners are not Gen Z. Gen Z is a very small minority actually in Bitcoin, and most people are millennial and above. Like even boomers are. I think there are more boomers than Gen Z in Bitcoin. I truly believe so.
Yeah, I don't look at my analytics too closely. I think it's probably 35 to 40 would be my average. But as far as Gen Z goes, honestly, I think it's a combination of a lot of people. Gen Z are broke, so and not only that too, they spend a lot of money on stupid stuff too. So when you don't have a lot of money and you're spending whatever free money you get on stuff that you don't really need, I think that's part of the reason why they have been reluctant, for lack of a better word, to get into Bitcoin. And I also see a lot of younger people. They're into altcoins. They're into like gambling and stuff like that. When I talk to people, that's almost exclusively what I see. The people that I hear, it's almost always people like 30s, 40s, 50s that for Bitcoin. I don't know. And I think that's probably what you noticed too.
If you have no money, you get desperate, and that's where you become susceptible to gambling, meme coins, big promises with no real facts behind you, like those kind of things. Unfortunately, like very true, and that's why Gen Z is also not that big on Bitcoin.
And I think most people like your Gen Zs, you're at least the older ones, you're old enough to remember like the 2021, when people legitimately were like 10x, 100xing their money on some random altcoin. And I think a lot of people have gotten used to thinking that that's actually a normal thing, when in reality it was a one-off. So I think that's another thing that kind of plays into it. And people think that they can outperform Bitcoin by trading altcoins or trading Bitcoin, which again, a very small amount of people will, but virtually nobody will at the end of the day.
It's so funny. There is those people like it should be a meme, because I see those people all the time. It's like, yeah, I have like a $2,000 portfolio, and I want to outperform Bitcoin because I don't have any money. And I'm like, okay, if you don't have any money, this tells me you're not that good at making money. Otherwise, you would have more money. And so, why do you think that you don't have any skills in making money, but you have all the skills to trading assets, so you can beat the best performing asset on the planet? Like, if you would say, okay, I have like a $10 million portfolio, and I'm like, then it's at least that there's some proof that you can make money, and then maybe I believe you that you can outperform Bitcoin, even though I probably won't believe you, and you probably won't outperform Bitcoin. But then there's those people that say like, I have no money. Clearly, I have no way like I don't have any skills to making money, but I know exactly how to outperform Bitcoin, and I will execute a strategy, and you will be broken in no time.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Like the first thing that I would say for that is, if you're Gen Z and you're looking to get ahead, like you got to find a way to get at least a decent paying job and just save your money, live below your means. There's another thing I notice with younger people nowadays is that people expect to, like, you're 20 years old and people expect to have like their own place, their own nice car and all this. They want to go on 2, 3, 4 holidays a year. And it's like, it's not realistic.
Now coming closer and closer. I mean, as you also to the end of the 30, end of the 20s, so like starting of the 30 years old. And the more and more I kind of think about what I've learned the last decade. So now my last decade was from 17 to 27, as I'm 27 now. So I'm thinking more and more about like, what is the 20s all about? And what I see with people that were more successful than me, that I see that the people that were less successful than me, and people that like was successful as me in their 20s, I see a pattern. Those people that are as successful or more successful than me, they are going not for earning money, they're going for earning skills and experiences and networking. Those are the things that they are usually going ahead, and they want to explore. They will want to kind of figure out what they're good at, and they will kind of figure out what their place in the world is, what they want to do, and all those things. Those are usually the people, weirdly enough, that make more money than the people that go after the money, that say like, oh, I want to earn a lot of money, and then I just like go into some job. I don't know if this is also your experience, but I've seen the people that actually collect skills and resources outside of money and experiences and just making great connections with other people are out earning the people that trying to out earn everyone else.
Yeah, exactly. I see that all the time. Like the thing that's gotten me ahead the most is using your free time to study the most successful people. And it's not necessarily, I guess the best way of wording it would be figure out how they think and what their mindset is. That's the big thing.
100%. Which leads us to our not our androgen, our question that we have for each and every one of our guests that comes on the podcast for the first time ever. And the question is, what can we learn from you besides Bitcoin?
I would say fitness and nutrition. That's kind of my other big hobby or passion project. Is the best way to explain it would be if you look at, there's basically three things that will massively increase your likelihood of living longer and living healthier. The first one and most important one is genetics, which you have no control over. But the other two are your strength, your muscle mass, and the other one would be your VO2 max, which is like being able to do cardio and being able to get your heart rate super high, and like sprinting, stuff like that. I don't know the best way to explain it, but I'm more of a weightlifting guy. So that would be the most important thing. If I look at my life and figure out the two things that got me ahead the most, number one is understanding finance, investing, which obviously Bitcoin, the main thing there. But the other thing is getting in the gym, because it gives you so much confidence. And not only does it give you confidence, it makes you healthier. It makes you feel better. It makes you look better. Like there's really no downside whatsoever. So that's the other thing that I would say as far as that goes.
What do you think is the most important aspects of nutrition that we should understand?
Virtually everybody's under eating protein. That'd be the one thing. And the other thing too is too much processed food. The traditional way of thinking, right? I mean, when I'm at work, for example, like sometimes people bring in like donuts or just random stuff like that. And the average person's mentality is, you eat the donut, you don't even think about it. But again, for me, it's like, not that I eat unhealthy sometimes. There is a little bit of moderation that can be okay, but you have to change the way you think. You have to just be more structured. It's the same thing with your investing and with your finance, right? Like the reason that people get ahead financially is that they're very structured. There's a very well thought out plan, and they're very good at sticking to it. It's the same thing with your diet. Get more protein. That's probably like 99% of the population's not getting enough protein. And on top of that, just eat healthier, right? And I mean, we look at like in Canada and the US, the majority of health ailments or issues are lifestyle or diet related, right? So if people simply exercised, ate right, and you could literally reduce hospital visits by 50-60% if people just did that, right? Which is absolutely mind boggling. But again, people just don't do it.
Yeah, 100%. It's crazy how if you just stick to the basics of fresh whole foods, non-processed things, and trying to have more proteins and less carbs, like you're doing already amazing. Like whatever you're eating, like if you stick to that, it's like already freaking amazing. The big thing is sugary drinks and processed food, because processed food is all like almost everything that like the modern American diet is.
I think that the sugary drinks is probably the worst, because if you want to look at a way to get diabetes, to be overweight, the worst thing you can possibly do, in my opinion, is to drink your calories, especially when it's sugar, right? Because there's no nutritional value, there's no upside whatsoever. And nowadays, like there's zero sugar equivalents that taste arguably just as good. So the worst thing, in my opinion, I would recommend for people is, if you're drinking any calories, cut that out first. And then after that, worry about the processed foods.
Do you drink something outside of water?
I have 0-calorie, most of the time naturally sweetened, like pops and stuff like that, or sodas. And then I do have 0-calorie energy drinks sometimes as well. Sometimes naturally sweetened, sometimes not.
Interesting. Yeah, but man, I could do a whole podcast on that. It's super interesting, because where are you actually standing on like carnivore versus plant-based, like animal-based proteins versus plant-based proteins?
When it comes to carnivore, I'm not an expert, obviously, but I mean, there are some people I follow that are experts. From what I've heard, there's no actual evidence, hard evidence at least. There certainly is an endless amount of anecdotal evidence that it helps, but same goes for plant-based too. But for me, one of the most important things for me is being able to lift weights and build muscle and stuff like that. And if that's something that's really important to you, you need carbs. Like, there's some people that can get around it, but you're going to need carbs if you want to build muscle, if you want to be like a high level athlete or anything along those lines. Almost certain you're going to need carbs.
But like, because you're saying if you're going full carnivore, it's like you don't get any carbs then, because like you're just eating proteins and meat at that point.
Yeah, it's would be like 99% protein and fat in carnivore. And then if you want to look at like a vegan diet, technically, yeah, you can still get a lot of carbs there, but most of the vegan proteins and stuff like that, they're not as bioavailable. Again, I'm not an expert on that, but and not only that too, I think that if you compare vegan proteins to like a lot of the meats and stuff like that, I just think that the steak and stuff like that, chicken, just tastes better than the vegan options, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's like, you want to have chickpeas or chicken? It's like,
yeah, like tofu versus steak. It's like, yeah, it's pretty obvious options for me.
But yeah, but it's like I mean, there's so many different topics in there. It's because like I also like I try to not to go for taste. Like I try to optimize always my diet for like not what tastes best, because like if I just go for taste, it's like Oreos and like Coke. It's like they're tasting fucking good, but like I don't want to drink that. But I'm just so fascinated by, I research animal versus plant-based proteins on a regular basis. Like I'm not an expert at all. Like I have no expertise in this. And there's one day where I researched and was like, oh wait, proteins from animals are so much better. And then I was like, oh wait, animal proteins are so much better. It's so freaking confusing. It's so freaking confusing what to really eat. It seems like such a logical, it's such an easy thing to actually research, like, oh, what should you eat? But there's so much confusing studies, so much confusing stuff out there. And I haven't found an answer. Like I eat everything. I eat a lot plant-based, but I also eat chicken and steak and all of that. So, and I try to just like cut out processed food, cut out sugary drinks, cut out all the bad things that I know that are bad, and eat as healthy and whole food. Kind of like if I eat plant-based, it's like I cook it myself. Like I do it myself. Like even from Austrian farmers sometimes and all of that. I try to do the same thing with meat. Try to like source it nicely and make, because like meat is also not always meat. They have different qualities also. So I don't know. It's a freaking confusing. Like it's not Bitcoin is easy. Bitcoin is easy to research versus nutrition. Nutrition is like everyone has a top opinion on that.
Yeah, my opinion would be just experiment and see what works best for you. Because some people, if it's like, hey, you got to eat healthy, but you have to eat vegan, they're just not going to do it. But if it's like, hey, you can do carnivore, or at the very least, you just cut out processed foods. Like, honestly, if you just cut out processed foods and if you cut out sugary drinks, you're probably 90% of the way there already. If there's some minutia of a difference, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I would experiment, number one, see what works good for you. But the main thing is cut out sugary drinks, cut out as much processed food as you can, and you're already 90% of the way.
Yeah, this is the thing. When I eat a lot of meat, I don't feel as good. But then the carnivore people say to me like, oh, you have to do it longer. I'm like, I don't want to, it's like, I don't want to do it like for a month or 2 months, because, if I eat a really nice plant-based, meal, I just feel freaking amazing. Like I have like high energy, like I don't have any like of the weird things. And then if I eat too much meat, if I eat like the best case for me is like a little bit of meat, and then with like really nice plant-based things, like I'm talking nothing processed, nothing like weird, nothing Impossible Burger or any like that. All that shit is BS. But like have some chickpeas, maybe have some lentils, like have like things like that are also like spinach. I think I love spinach. Like the spinach is really nice. Also, gosh, like I have to research that topic closer. Like I hate that I don't have an opinion on that.
Yeah, even when you look at like people that are literally experts, they have like PhDs and this kind of stuff, they don't even disagree. So that's why I say at the end of the day, if it works for you, it works for you. It's pretty hard to argue against it.
Very true. We have an end routine in the podcast where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. The previous guest asked you the question, what's the best argument against Bitcoin you ever heard?
Argument against it? Like as far as if it's going to fail, or just straight up why you shouldn't invest in it?
I guess why you should not invest in it, but he did not classify.
If it's why you shouldn't invest, I would say it's very hard, right? We wouldn't be here if there was a good argument for that. But I would say probably the volatility, right? Because if you can be down 90% in a year, then that's probably the best. But it's pretty hard to come up with a good answer, to be honest. But I would say the extreme volatility.
100%. The volatility is what scares a lot of people. But I don't know why. Volatility is vitality, like the vitality. Seyr said that last time so nicely. He mentioned that if you want to have no volatility, like you have to be dead, because that's the only place where your assets don't have volatility. He said something like crazy like that. It's very true. Really cool. Thank you so much for being on. Before I let you go, where can people find you and ask you questions?
Probably YouTube and Twitter would be the best options for that.
Awesome. Then I'll put that in the description.
YouTube, it's just my name. Twitter, I actually forget my handle off the top of my head, but you have it, don't you?
I think I have it. If not, just send it over to me. I think we connected on Twitter, right? Or did we connect differently?
I'll DM you right after again.
Awesome. Then thank you so much, Carter, for being on the podcast. And also thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye. This content is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial advice.